All right there, YouTube. So we're going to do something a little different this week. Probably not going to get a video on the Peterbilt done here this week. I had my birthday yesterday. I didn't do a whole lot around the shop yesterday. I did a quick wash job on the Mack and out here today. Mostly what I want to get done is I got a couple things to do to the Mack before we go to work here for next week. Just stuff that's not very interesting. Throw some wiper blades on it. I want to grease the truck, just kind of go over things, make sure that we're good to go. And I don't think that's going to make a very interesting video. Probably try to spend a couple of hours with the Pete today. Probably not enough to do a video on it. Just kind of button up a couple little things that whatever, you know, they're not necessarily anything I think's interesting enough for a video. So I thought what I'd do here this week instead is maybe cover a few, frequently answered questions on the channel. Main one kind of being, how did I become a mechanic? And I'll put mechanic in quotation marks because I don't really consider myself a mechanic per se. Just kind of go over the story a little bit of how I got started, how I kind of learned what I know, and probably touch a little bit on why I started the YouTube channel and kind of where I thought it was going to go and where we are now and where we're going in the future. Just kind of cover a little bit of those topics. I've really kind of avoided doing this video. It's been, especially the question of how I became a mechanic and stuff, it's kind of a long story, and I don't personally find myself to be that interesting, so I feel like if I don't feel that it's interesting, you guys aren't going to feel it's interesting. But it has been something that's been requested a lot on the channel, so I thought maybe we'd kind of do a video on that and see how it goes. If you guys like the video, maybe we'll do some more stories on previous projects and stuff that, before I ever started the YouTube channel. It's kind of one of those things, I wish I would have started doing this 10 years ago, because there's been so many different projects and unusual projects and stuff that I've done over that time that I think would have made really great videos that you guys would have really liked. And, there's a lot of that stuff, I never even took a single picture of it. I'm going to try to throw some pictures that I do have in up here on the screen as I'm going through and telling some of the story and where things started and whatnot. I don't have a whole lot of pictures to show you guys, quite honestly. When I was younger, I never took pictures of anything, definitely didn't take videos of anything. The internet, was just even a thing that was just kind of, starting around the time that, I got started kind of doing mechanical work and fixing things and, that kind of stuff. So there are definitely some interesting stories that I have of, things that I've done in the past and whatnot. So, if you guys like this video, maybe we'll do some more videos in the future on, stories on previous interesting things. But, really, I kind of want to stick to things that have substance and, not necessarily just storytelling. I don't think I'm the best storyteller in the world. So anyway, I guess the first thing we're going to cover is why did I start a YouTube channel? And that does kind of tie into a little bit on how I started becoming a mechanic. And a lot of that was, well, first let's start with the channel name. I'm sure there's probably a number of you guys that think, well, your channel name's kind of weird. Easy Rider 92356. Where did that come from? Okay, so Easy was kind of a nickname when I was growing up, and I did like motorcycles, and I rode motorcycles quite a bit, and Easy Rider kind of became a nickname. Easy's kind of a weird nickname. Where did that come from? Well, my first name's Ezra, so Easy, short for Ezra, and that's kind of how that became the thing. And I made my YouTube account long before I ever had any aspiration or intention of creating a YouTube channel. So I know it's kind of a weird YouTube username. Maybe at some point we'll change it, but we'll probably just stick with it. The 92356, that's actually the zip code of the town that I grew up in. Out in California, high desert region, little town called Lucerne Valley, California. It's a little hole in the wall town out in the desert, sagebrush and sand. It's kind of near the Johnson Valley off-road area and stuff out there in the high desert of California. And that's the little town that I grew up in. And growing up, I was always playing with cars and motorcycles and things like that, taking them out in the desert, ripping them around. It was very, my childhood was very reminiscent of the early days of Roadkill. I'm sure a lot of you guys are familiar with the show Roadkill. You know, they take beat up, clapped out cars and they fix them up over a week and they go out and blast them around and have fun with them. And I did a lot of that growing up. And so that kind of was, that was part of the motivation of starting the YouTube channel. It's like, hey, you know, this is so reminiscent of what I did growing up. You know, maybe people would be interested in watching what I do. So that's kind of, you know, why I started the YouTube channel. I never really expected it to grow this big. I thought, hey, you know, a couple hundred people will probably enjoy this. And we just crossed 10,000 subscribers here recently, which is amazing. You know, I never had any thoughts or aspirations that, you know, the channel would grow so big. And I think that we've still got a lot to grow, and, you know, that's awesome. You know, the larger the channel is, the more it's going to open up opportunities to do things that, you know, I might not be able to do otherwise. So that's awesome. Thank you guys for subscribing to the channel. Hope we grow even bigger in the future, and, you know, that really helps out. You know, I don't really make a profit off of YouTube, but what I do make off of YouTube does help go to projects and things that we do on the channel, and buying camera gear and, you know, whatnot, to help, you know, bring higher quality content and more interesting content to the channel. So, you know, that's an amazing thing. And I think, you know, in the future, if it keeps growing, you know, there's been a number of people that have, you know, expressed interest in meeting me or coming and seeing the projects and stuff like that. And, you know, if the channel keeps growing, at some point, you know, we'll probably try to do some kind of public events, or be at, you know, a truck show or, you know, something like that, that, you know, you guys can come out and meet me and, you know, see some of the projects and whatnot. And we'll probably try to do something like that in the future. I didn't really expect the channel to be focused on trucks when I started the channel. Actually, kind of just sitting behind me for the background here, my Jaguar project I kind of thought would be the focus of the start of the channel. And yeah, no one's really been that interested in it. It's kind of funny, you know. This car, I drive it around town, man, everyone's giving me thumbs up. Oh man, that thing's awesome. You know, it draws a crowd everywhere it goes. And on the internet, it's kind of like a few people, you know, that's pretty cool. But, you know, 359 Peterbilt, you know, most people want an old ragged 359 Peterbilt. No one really takes a second glance at it in real life. A lot of people that I know that are truck drivers and been around trucks, they like trucks, they don't even know what a 359 Pete is, you know. So, you know, it's kind of the wonders of the internet world, right? You know. So been blabbering on a long time here. Kind of get to the story of you know, how I became a mechanic. And it really wasn't, you know, something that happened overnight. It was a long story and long progression, and I kind of touched on a little bit of it here already. But growing up, you know, a lot of people ask, well, who taught you, and you know, that kind of stuff. And you know, there really wasn't any one person. I'd say the one person that kind of started it was my uncle. My uncle was a military man. He was a mechanically inclined person. My dad, not so much. My dad was a musician primarily. You know, but we didn't have a lot of money growing up. He did a lot of stuff. You know, he did a lot of notable stuff, but he was never a big name or anything like that. And we didn't really have a whole lot of money growing up. We always had a roof over our heads and food to eat, whether it was, spaghetti for the 5th night in a row. But, I'm kind of thankful that I grew up that way because, it taught me a lot about work ethic and, if you want something, you got to work for it. You got to do it yourself. You got to make things happen for yourself. No one's going to hand things to you in this world. And, and that's just kind of the way I grew up. I worked from a very young age. But, really kind of this story's going to be hard to edit and follow here because I don't really do these type of videos, so I'm kind of bouncing all over the place. But, let's see. Got to back up a little bit. I'm jumping too far ahead. So, probably about 7, 8 years old, somewhere around there, had a little mini bike. The Briggs & Stratton air-cooled motor on it, little clutch, tire, brake pedal with a metal paddle that pressed against the back tire type deal. And, it was like a third-hand garage sale thing. My dad probably paid $20 for it at a yard sale, and it didn't run. And, my uncle was a mechanically inclined person, and, he kind of helped me fix this thing and make it work and stuff. And, it was an old piece of junk, so, we basically had to fix everything on it, tear the motor apart, every other time you wanted to ride the thing, so, that was kind of where I learned the fundamentals. He, taught me, the 4 cycles of a 4-cycle engine and, how points work and, magnetic pickups and, all that kind of stuff. And, he taught me how it actually worked and not just how to fix it. And that was kind of the fundamentals that, I've used, throughout and learned how to fix things and how to look at something and figure out how to fix it, And, as I got older, even before I had my driver's license, I'd go work odd jobs, cutting firewood, or did a lot of carpentry and construction work and stuff as I was younger. And the money I'd make from that, I'd go out and I'd buy a piece of junk car that didn't run out of someone's field for $50, and I'd drag the thing home and use junkyard parts or whatever I could find to make it actually work and fix it. And then I'd drive it round out in the desert a little bit, and then I'd sell it to go buy something else, or I'd horse trade it for something else. And and then I had a couple of friends that were older than me that a couple years older, they were driving and stuff, and I helped them fix their cars. I remember one time a friend of mine had this Dodge pickup. I couldn't tell you what year it was. It had a 6-cylinder in it, I remember that, so it was probably a slant 6. And the motor was bad in it, and he had bought, I don't know how he got it or whatever, but he had gotten this other Dodge pickup of the same era and whatever that had been rolled over and the roof was smashed down. I remember him driving that over to my house to pick me up, and we drove it to his house with the roof all smashed in. We're sitting, like this in the thing, and there's no windshield in it and whatever, and we're driving this piece of junk over to his house. We get some 4x4s. We build this, A-frame, and we pulled the motor out of the thing and stuffed it in the one that had the blown up motor, and then we drove it and whatever. And I helped same guy, we changed a few transmissions on other cars and stuff like that. And then actually, this pickup over here, this pickup goes way back to that time here. This is a California truck. This was my mom's truck. I was probably about 15 years old, 14 maybe, and the motor had blown up in this thing. And my mom basically told me, well, she had this Datsun 280ZX, and she had a mechanic working on it. It was supposed to be fixed. The motor had blown up in this truck, and my mom gave me this truck, blown up motor in it, and I said, okay, well, we're trying to fix it. So I get the Haynes manual or whatever for this truck and tear the whole motor apart and fix it. And this is actually a two-wheel drive truck. Homemade lift kit on it that I had done when I was 15 years old. You know, it's pretty bad. I mean, but you know, this truck's more or less how it was then, except so I had fixed it and got it running and passed California smog inspection, all that stuff. And the mechanic that was working on my mom's 280ZX, she couldn't fix it. He gave up on it, and my mom's like, you know, I really need something to drive. Can I trade you that Datsun 280ZX that my mechanic can't get going for the truck back? So we did that, and I got that 280ZX running and driving, and drove it down the road, and you know, still didn't have a driver's license at the time, and really liked that car. It wasn't a desirable 280ZX. It was a 2+2 and whatnot, and I had ended up I'd gotten another 280ZX, a coupe, a 79 coupe, and fixed that thing. And then I had gotten my driver's license, and I took my driver's test in this Toyota pickup here. And just to kind of wrap up the story on the Toyota and how it ended up back here and why I have it here and all that. So you're talking an engine that a 15-year-old rebuilt, right? And I gave it back to my mom, and she drove it for probably the next 6-7 years, something like that. And I had already moved out. I was actually living in North Dakota by then. I think I moved here in 2006. And so this truck had been being driven by her for probably 8 years, and the motor went out on it again, top end. And then my mom was going to move, and she told me, hey, you know, if you want that Toyota pickup back, you're going to have to come back to California and get it, because I can't take it with me when I move. So I loaded up the trailer and I drove out to California, and I got it and I brought it back here. Redid the top end on it and got it running. I drove it for the next 3-4 years, and then it ended up throwing a rod through the block. I was like 200 miles away from home, and the engine started knocking real bad. And it's like, well, shit, you know, the transmission was already shot in the thing. It didn't have fourth gear. So you know, them big tires on stock gears and a homemade lift kit, and you know, you had to shift from third gear to fifth gear driving down the highway. So, you know, and the motor went out, and it's like, well, shit, motor's bad, transmission's bad in it. I'm gonna try to make it home in it, and if I get within 100 miles, I'll get a free tow from AAA, right? So I made it to 98 miles from my house, and it threw the rod through the block. And that was in 2011 that happened. So drug it home, and it hasn't been on the road since. But you know, the truck has a lot of sentimental value to me, and I can't bring myself to get rid of it. But I want to do something interesting with it. I don't know what, but we're doing something interesting with it. I started doing a V8 swap on it. It's actually got an Oldsmobile V8 under the hood right now. And I started doing that, and then I thought, you know, I don't want to use the Oldsmobile engine. So then I was going to build a 350 for it, and that's actually been since I started the channel. And there's a video when I tore this engine down and found out that it needs a bunch of machine work, and it's sat there ever since. And now I've got this engine sitting here that's meant to go on that truck, and this is a Mopar 360 Magnum engine. I think I'm going to put this in there, but you know, the part of the problem with this is I've never really had a clear, I want to do something interesting with it. I've never really had a clear vision with it, and so it ends up just sitting here collecting dust. So that's the story on the Toyota. I kind of actually had planned on putting that 360 in there this winter, but that's not going to happen now that I've got the Peterbilt project. But I'm hoping to get that project 90% completed to the point where we can put it on the road here within the next year is my goal. And maybe after I finish that, I'll do something interesting with that truck. Who knows? Don't know if they'll even be on the channel, depending on how many of you guys are interested in that. And yeah. So, you know, that's kind of how I became a mechanic. I had taken some automotive courses and stuff like that at certain points, but really most of it was just, you know, it was from learning how to do one thing and then applying that knowledge to the next thing, into the next thing, into the next thing, and just building on that, you know, over time. And, you know, after a while, you just kind of get to the point that you don't have to look up how to do something or know how to do something anymore. It's all just nuts and bolts. You look at it and you go, oh, well, this has got to come out to do this, and, you know, this isn't working because this, and, you know, yada yada. And, you know, you just kind of learn how to look at things and figure out how to fix it. And then once you fix that thing, then, you know, you learn a little bit each time, and you just kind of build on that, and from one project to the next project to the next project to the next project. And that's how you learn how to do this stuff. And, you know, I don't really consider myself a mechanic because I'm not a mechanical in the sense that I don't get paid to work on stuff. I work on my own stuff. And I mean, yeah, there's been times, you know, that I've worked as a mechanic, but it's never been my profession, or, you know, for any length of time anyway. I mean, it's been part of many jobs that I've had because I have that skill, but, you know, I haven't worked in a shop for 10 years. So that's why I don't consider myself a mechanic per se. But, you know, I had a 75 Dodge Dart. It was actually a vehicle my brother had originally gotten. It had a slant six 225 in it. The thing drove and all that stuff, but it burned a ton of oil. And then at one point we got a wrecked 70-something Plymouth Duster, 79 maybe, I don't even remember anymore. We pulled the engine and transmission out of that, had a built 318 in it. We put that in that, and the starter would fall off, and the drive shaft was the wrong length, so you'd hit a bump real hard and it would bust a U-joint, you know. And, you know, it had all kinds of issues. I mean, and then when the bell housing bolts would back out, if you didn't tighten them up every day, it would break the flex plate, you know, that the torque converter bolts to on the back of the engine. It would break that, and you know, you'd lose all 4 gears because the engine was no longer connected, and you'd have to drop the transmission, change the flex plate and all that stuff. And I got really good at dropping the transmission on that thing. I seem to remember my record being like an hour to drop the transmission, put a flex plate in it, and then stuff the transmission back in and go about your way, you know. So, you know, there was a lot of projects like that growing up. And anyway, I think this video is probably getting really long and boring, so we're probably going to end it off here. And anyway, guys, thanks for watching. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe down below. Thank you. Have a good day.